Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SCMH webinar. Today we'll be focused on the work transfer management guidance. My name is Susan Parsons, and I work for the IAQG. And together, along with two panelists today, who will introduce themselves shortly, we'll be sharing the overview of this guidance. So let's get started. Just letting you know that time permitting, we'll answer as many questions as possible. So please add your questions along the way into the Q&A box. Make a slide number reference if you need to. Just a couple quick slides here before we go right into our topic. So I just wanted those that may be not aware and were invited into a meeting room to check out this webinar. You can get to this material by going to IAQG.org. You can see SCMH along the top. You can see IAQG tools, which also shows the SCMH. Just click on that and learn more about the SCMH. The structure, it links to the several SCMH topics. You have the model life cycle going right across the page when you enter that area. You can see plan and manage. All these are hot links. They'll take you to the section plan and manage, and you'll see a listing of the various topics down below. Once you open one of those topics, which we will do this for the work transfer management webinar as well, but just to show you a quick review of what it looks like. When you open, for example, Advanced Product Quality Planning, all of those webinars exist at the top. These are all live webinars. You can go and click on them and watch them live. Then down the bottom, you'll see core guidance, and to the right, you'll see all the tools for that particular topic. So I'd like to turn this over to our panelists today, who would introduce themselves, please.
Thank you, Sue, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I'm Ricardo Martinez and work for the Boeing Company in the Supplier Quality Organization. I had the opportunity a few years ago to lead the SCMH writing team responsible for the revision of Section 7.1, Work Transfer Management, and we'll be sharing a high-level summary of the work transfer guidance material available today in the SCMH in collaboration with my colleague, Vanessa Rice. Vanessa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I am Vanessa Rice, and I am the Work Transfer Process Owner for Collins Aerospace, a division of Raytheon Technologies. I was also a member of Ricardo's writing team that did revision to this section of the IAQG SCMH. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So for today's webinar, we will cover an introduction to work transfer management, and APQP integration, the work transfer management process, including work transfer stages and APQP phases, work transfer stages, how to use the SCMH work transfer tool included in section 7.1.3, some SCMH guidance provided by Sue, and Q&A session. Can you go to the next slide, Sue? Thank you. So a brief introduction to work transfer. As we are all aware, the aviation, space, and defense supply chain is continuously changing the source of supply or manufacturing of components and assemblies across companies or the external supply chain. There are different types of work transfers which depend on the location of the activity before and after. This could be from an organization to an external provider, from an external provider to an organization, or change from an external provider to another external provider, change from one site location to another site location within the same organization. Movement of work from one manufacturing site to another is referred to as work transfer in the IAQG standard 9100 section 8.1, and the requirement is very clear and straightforward here. The organization shall establish, implement, and maintain a process to plan and control the temporary or permanent transfer of work to ensure the continuing conformity of the work to requirements. There could be multiple reasons for work movement, such as capacity increase, procurement strategy, cost reduction, new technology, customer requirements, you name it. Work transfers often cause on-time, on-quality issues because they are not controlled or managed per the requirement. So the key message here is IAQG standard 9100 requires AS&D organizations to establish, maintain, and implement a process to control work transfers. Could you go to the next slide, please? Now let's talk about integration of work transfer management and APQP. The purpose of this webinar is to provide guidelines for the application of effective risk management through a structured stage approach, including APQP elements. Organizations may implement APQP into their work transfer process by selecting the appropriate elements according to the nature of the work transfer project. SCMH section 7.1.3 Work Transfer Applicability Matrix provides guidance on which elements may be used on each work transfer stage. APQP principles provides foundation for successful work transfers, and we can talk about number one, organizational commitment and management support. Top management demonstrates commitment by completing work transfer and APQP training, allocating resources, leading reviews, standardizing work transfer and APQP principles, and especially removing roadblocks. Number two, engagement of cross-functional teams, which enables effective communication, risk mitigation, and faster deployment. And finally, number three, effective project planning and management. Next slide, please. This is a very nice chart. This is the APQP Work Transfer Management Integration chart. It provides visual alignment of APQP phases and work transfer stages. Could you zoom in the green box, so please? Thank you. As mentioned before, organizations may implement APQP into their work transfer process by selecting the appropriate elements according to the nature of the work transfer project. Work transfer management stages may be aligned to APQP phases, so activities and deliverables support work transfer stage reviews. For example, during work transfer stage 4, APQP elements such as process flow diagram, production preparation plans, PFMEAs, MSA, and PPAP can provide to organizations evidence that production processes consistently fulfill technical, quality, and cost requirements, that product fulfills the design requirements, and the production processes have demonstrated the capability to consistently produce conforming product on time. As you can see here, we are aligning work transfer stage reviews with the deliverables from APQP. Can you zoom out, Sue, please? You will also notice that earlier phases of APQP are not aligned within the work transfer management stages because design and development have already occurred by the time a process or a product are being transferred from one side to another side. However, and as we mentioned before, organizations may select APQP elements that will support the risk management in a work transfer project. Can you go to the next slide, please? And for the last slide of my presentation, we have a summary of APQP elements referenced in the Work Transfer Process Management SCMH guidance material. On the first column, we have APQP elements. Second column, to which work transfer stages may apply. And third and fourth columns are the SCMH sections on work transfer, 7.1.2 and 7.2.3 APQP with the full description of these elements. This is available in SCMH section 7.1.3.
We are now going to transfer to the work transfer management stages. The successful transfer of work from one site to another is dependent on defined stages with required elements and a review process. There are 5 work transfer management stages identified in the SCMH. Stage 1 is proposal and flexibility. Stage 2 is project launch. Stage 3 is detailed planning. Stage 4 is the execution of the plan, and stage 5 is project closure. Each stage is followed by a stage review. The stage reviews are designed to involve members from multiple disciplines to determine if the project has the correct plan and if that plan is being executed well. The stage review committee must decide if the project should move forward or be stopped after each stage. We will look at each of the 5 stages and highlight some of the elements on the following slides. Next slide, please. During stage 1, the team determines the feasibility of the proposed work transfer. Next slide, Sue, please. Thank you. During stage 1, the team determines the flexibility of the proposed work transfer, focusing on avoiding wasteful expenditure of organization resources. The work transfer proposal contains sufficient information to show potential sources of risk and to identify mandatory controls for the duration of the project. The initial project plan should be developed as soon as the potential work transfer is identified. It should include sufficient information to evaluate if it is reasonable to launch a feasibility study. The feasibility study is then done to evaluate if there's another way to meet the desired state and the probability of success of the proposal. If the project is feasible, a business case is done to ensure alignment with the organization's strategy. Then a project charter is developed and is communicated to the stakeholders. The project then goes to stage 1 review to determine if the project is sensible, aligns with company strategy, and if it should move forward. Next slide, please. If the project moves forward, it begins stage 2. There are multiple APQP elements in this stage and the remaining stages, and they're notated by the yellow highlight. In stage 2, a multifunctional transition team builds the framework of a program plan, which includes each high-level task and all the project inputs. The project targets are very important to develop as they outline the strategy of the project and include customer requirements, regulatory requirements, and project-specific objectives. Key performance indicators, otherwise known as KPIs, are also developed and based on a specific quantity of product and a duration of time to ensure that the receiving organization can meet the needed capacity, quality, and capability. Another important element in this stage is the risk assessment with mitigation plans. The risk assessment is completed for the sources under consideration to become the receiving organization. It identifies any past issues and risks that may occur during the transfer for each of the sources being considered. The inventory plan ensures continuity of the supply chain. These items and others are communicated to the receiving organization to ensure they are understood and their organization has the capability to comply. The stage 2 review is then conducted to ensure that the elements are clearly defined and valid, and the project is ready to move to the next stage. Next slide, please, Sue. In stage 3, a detailed task-based program plan is developed, defining all the necessary activities, action owners, and implementation dates. The program plan includes cost, schedule, and risks with mitigation steps. It's used to develop the budget to meet cost and schedule requirements. One of the key elements in this phase is to ensure that all knowledge about the product and process definition, requirements, tooling, quality levels, costs, and undocumented steps are communicated to the receiving organization before the transfer happens. The preliminary sourcing plan is developed in this phase to identify and select producers that will be supporting the development and production of outsourced items. After the sourcing plan is developed, please consider the risks associated with the sourcing plan, including risks associated with technology, logistics, lead time, potential for obsolescence, the prevention of counterfeit parts, and any sole sourced parts. To support a successful product launch, it's essential that there is proper definition and planning for all new packaging required to ship the product. The Stage 2 review is then conducted to ensure that detailed planning is sufficient and the business case remains valid. Approval of this stage provides authority to implement the detailed plan. Next slide, please. During Stage 4, all the actions decided during Stages 1 through 3 are launched and verified for effective implementation and effectiveness. During this phase, the last article inspection is done. The last article is a first article inspection on the last lot produced by the current organization. When the first article inspection is done, it's compared with the last article inspection in order to understand if the product has remained the same. If there are differences, improvements and process changes may need to be implemented. 3 of the APQP elements in this phase are the process failure mode and effects analysis, the control plan, and manufacturing process review. The PFMEA is a risk analysis of the manufacturing process that identifies and mitigates production risks. It's both a continuous improvement process and a repository for lessons learned. The control plan links key inspection and control activities to the manufacturing process steps, and it's used to ensure product quality. The control plan should be updated throughout the life of the product in response to new quality issues, product and process changes. The manufacturing process review is conducted by the receiving organization to ensure that all documentation, manufacturing, test methods, quality parameters, tooling, and training are in place to meet production requirements. The Stage 4 review verifies that the transition was implemented according to plan, the business case was achieved, and the receiving organization is ready for production based on the identified metrics. Next slide, please. Stage 5 ensures that the work transfer is robust and that the project is ready for closure. The initiating organization does an evaluation of process capability and product quality to validate that long-term capability is sustained, and the receiving organization has produced product for a specified time to ensure product quality. The final business case is compared to the initial business case to show that the project met the projection, and if it did not, why. To ensure medium and long-term effectiveness of a work transfer and guarantee achievement of delivery performance, it is necessary to regularly verify sustainability of all the actions implemented and implement quality performance monitoring. Lessons learned should be reviewed and communicated. Lessons learned highlight what worked well and what did not work well. Where appropriate, changes should be implemented so future work transfers are executed more effectively. The Stage 5 review ensures that all actions are closed and that the receiving organization is ready for serial production. The approval of this stage review closes the project. We are now going to transition to a demonstration of the SCMH 7.1.3 Work Transfer Management Worksheet. Hello, this is the SCMH Section 7.1.3 Work Transfer Management Worksheet instructions. This template was developed to meet your needs, and you are welcome to adapt it as necessary for your business. It is just a baseline, so feel free to add additional tabs or change the tabs that are here to work for your business. We are going to go through each of the tabs in this worksheet, and we're going to start with the instructions tab here. So this instructions tab is general instructions for the whole worksheet. And then at the bottom, as you scroll down, there are general instructions for the stage review checklists. Those are definitely referred to in the 7.12 work transfer document. And they're referred to here as S1, S2, and you can skip to them with these buttons. So feel free, please read the instructions before you begin with this document. Our very first tabs are the pictures that you see in the 7.1.2 document. This is the APQP Work Transfer Management Integration template, and it's just much bigger. It helps you to see more detail here, along with the stages figure. Our next tab is the applicability matrix. This really tells you if you are implementing work transfer without APQP or with APQP, what it should look like, right? And as the SCMH cannot require elements, it's just a recommendation. You'll see that our options are strongly recommended, recommended, or optional. And so without APQP, you'll see the notes here, and with APQP is right next to that. And then if you look at some of the red tabs, you know, it'll tell you, hey, this is for all types of work transfer. And some might say, hey, this is for make transfers or for to buy transfers. So please take a look at the red notes in the cell when you're implementing work transfer with APQP. It does go through every element in the work transfer handbook, so please look through that. Then in stage 1 of the work transfer document, in stage 1, you're supposed to do a business case and project proposal. You're welcome to use this form if you would like, and overall it's just identifies what the work transfer is for and what is it going to be used for and how much will it cost and what are we actually trying to do. Then also in stage 1 is the project charter, right? So this is agreed on by the whole team. It says, what do our savings want to be? When do we plan to complete the stage 1 through stage 5? What are our costs? What equipment is required? What constraints do we see up front? And then of course that general information is the top, the name, the objective, and what is your scope, right? And then as you move down the form, the initiating organization is the organization that is beginning the work transfer, saying a work transfer is necessary. The current organization is the organization that is currently doing the work, and then the receiving organization is the organization you are moving the work to. And then if you have team members from each of these organizations, you want to list those team members and what percentage of a full-time required do you expect them to be devoted to this project? And then it's signed off by the project lead. So this is also in stage 1. And then in stage 4, we do a readiness review. The readiness review is really an assessment of the work transfer project to determine if that receiving organization is ready for the product. Has adequate planning been done, and have we mitigated the potential risks? The product risk and the process risks. So this is a list of questions, and we truly do want you to look at your business and add additional questions as you feel is needed. And there are many topics that we cover in this, you know, and there is a drop down here for yes, no, or does not apply to my business. And this does really just help you know if that future source is ready to go. You know, have we done everything we need to begin production? As you look, it is quite a long list, but it really does take a good overview. And again, if you have any questions in each of the sections, please add them to help your business mitigate risks better. Then we'll go to the stage checklist. So all of these look very, very similar. And we're going to talk about them from the top down, as this is a great tool. And what it's used for is when you're moving from one stage to the next, you're looking to make sure that everything in stage 1 is complete and ready to move to stage 2. So the general information about the project is at the top, right? What is it? And then if it's emergency work transfer, if you say yes here, then you must complete the emergency work transfer box that is this blue box right here. So who is the project leader, and did they date and sign it? And the steering committee, you know, have them each sign it as well, saying that yes, it is an emergency project when you're doing this gate review. Then the next thing is the stage status. You know, what is the maturity of the project? And this will be after they look at the remainder of the form, they're going to fill out this section. So actually, let's skip for a second down to the bottom. And you will see these stage review checklist questions that are asking, hey, this was in our 7.1.2, has it been completed? And there's this column here that says critical to project. We defaulted all of those to yes, but you can change those to no based on your project type. Anything that is critical, you want them to be listed as either partially satisfied or fully satisfied if it's listed as yes. The no's can have other varying answers. And as you answer these questions, you'll see that the checklist summary is telling you, how much you have done, how much is reviewed, and how much is not reviewed. So as you assess these, your assessment comments would be, yes, we've done this and we have 15 stakeholders or whatever, and then if there's an action, you want to list these actions. These actions should be completed before your next stage review checklist, before your next stage review is complete. And then if you have a reference to complete documents, then you can link those here or reference those here. And what deliverable, what should be attached is listed there. So you go through these and then after that is done, your committee is going to determine what is your project maturity and what is their stage review decision. So go means you can go to the next step without any actions, just as you are. Proceed with actions means you can go to the next step, but they are giving you actions to complete just to make sure all your bases are met. If you are missing any of these critical items here that are critical for your project and they are not complete, it should be voted on redirect. And redirect means that you have to come back to the stage review once those items are complete for the stage review committee to review again. And no-go means we are stopping the project for one reason or another. It could be certain parts of the project or the full project. And so their vote will be pulled down. They'll explain why they made that decision. And then if there are critical actions that need to be completed, those would be listed here. And they can certainly use this table to evaluate that. So you'll see that we have the same checklists for S2 through S5. I won't show all of them, but you'll see that each question is different and it's based on that stage in 7.1.2. The very last tab is the record of revision. This record of revision, these are just examples that we've listed here, but this record of revision is to be used when you are using this for your project. So this is a project level record of revision. And you can change it. They did just give some examples of if you're changing things, then you add them here. The record of revision for the template is up in the top right. So this is the template revision, and then this would be for your project. So this is a very helpful tool that you can begin when you're implementing work transfer, or if you have implemented work transfer and are looking for new tools, this is a great way to start.
Thank you for that. So now we're going to move on to a brief summary.
Okay, thank you, Sue. So to wrap up our webinar, let's recap. IAQG Standard 9100 requires organizations to establish, implement, and maintain a process to plan and control the temporary or permanent transfer of work. Implementing APQP elements into work transfer provides a foundation for the successful movement of work. The successful transfer of work from one site to another is dependent on defined stages with required elements and review processes. And finally, work transfer guidance and tools within the SCMH have been available to you for free. We hope these are helpful to you and your organizations. And again, thank you very much for joining. It has been a pleasure to share this information with you all.
So thank you. So just quickly, we're going to go through where you can find the webinars before I start asking some of the questions that are keyed up. If you have a question, I'm going to try to get as many answered as possible. But quickly, I wanted to show you that once this webinar is finished, the recording again will be located under the webinar section in the SCMH topic. So you would go to 7.1, work transfer management. You would see the core guidance, the tools, which is the demo that we just did, and then the webinar will be published as well. So you can use that internally. Also, just for future announcements, you will be able to go to the SCMH, hit the announcement button, and that will show you things like there's our next webinar for next month, a link. It comes out in advance of the invitation, so you'll be able to sign up sooner and you'll know when the date and time is for those. And finally, if you want to learn more about the SCMH, go to the SCMH, of course, and hit the About SCMH button. You'll see an SCMH communication pack. It's also in Chinese and Japanese. You'll be able to share that with your company to show them what's available. You'll see the SCMH topics, which is an alphabetical listing of every topic in the SCMH. And then under what's new, you'll also see what just changed, what was revised, what did we just add. And we've added some new guidance recently as well for space applications. And there'll be new stuff published this week. Okay, so if we don't answer some of your questions today, because there's looking like a lot of them are coming in, you can also go to the Contact SCMH button and send a more specific question. I will forward that to the panelists, and then they'll be able to answer you. Or we might take some of these questions and put them into a Q&A and publish them, depending on how many there are and how beneficial they might be to the SCMH user community. So for the first question, Ricardo and Vanessa, I'll let you see who wants to answer this. In your experience, which is the main source of issues after a work transfer? Is it training, tooling, logistics? And among several PPAP elements, which do you think we need to pay more attention to, spend more energy on to be successful for the work transfer? Ricardo?
Yes, so main sources of issues could be related to training, product validation, and also the proper consumption of requirements. I think that PFMEAs, obviously PPAP, the collection of multiple deliverables, and last article inspection are some of the elements that organizations should put more attention to. The last article inspection, I think, is it's relevant to ensure that nothing changed, that there were no changes incorporated to the process, to the product, and it will also provide the opportunity to identify any tribal knowledge incorporated into the process. And by performing the first article inspection at the receiving organization and comparing those two artifacts, the organization will be able to ensure that the process and the product were transferred as designed and as planned.
To continue on that is, if you are talking about comparison between LAI and FAI, are you proposing a comparison between the LAI of the current manufacturing site and FAI of the receiving site? Or is it also recommended to do a comparison between the FAI and LAI of the current manufacturing site to already impose any lessons learned into the FAI for the receiving site?
So we would say that the last article inspection of the current organization should be compared to the first article of the receiving organization. I would say that if your last article of the current organization is not compliant to your print, it might be helpful to also look at their FAI to see what has changed.
Okay. Is this concept of APQP deployment in work transfer been accepted by all the large aerospace companies? If you can answer as well as you can.
Do you want to take that, Vanessa?
Sure. So I think it is being deployed by some. I mean, it's hard to know from our organizations, right? It's hard to know if it's deployed by all, but I know it's beginning at most if it has not yet started.
I will add to that some of the APQP core tools are already being used or implemented by organizations without using the whole APQP framework. So I believe it's a journey, and we will get there.
Agreed.
Okay. Let's see. So, sorry, as I read through each of these, I'm trying to find the ones that we can are clearly about work transfer. So slide 14 mentions risk mitigation. Many AS 9100 auditors from CBs subscribe to the zero defects philosophy. Consequently, they demand to see corrective action to address any nonconformities without recognizing the concept of common cause variation in a process, sometimes mechanical, technical, but often related to human factors. How can we demonstrate that the risk mitigation actions are acceptable for addressing nonconformities resulting from common cause variations? As you can see, I wasn't sure if this is related directly to work transfer or more under nonconformity, so the best you can.
Thank you, Sue. So the risks we were talking about on slide 14 and stage 3 are expected risks, right? So they're not actual risks yet, they're expected risks. And you're mitigating expected risks based on probability of cause, right? So in ZDP, what you're doing is reacting to actual risks, right? And actual nonconformance. So there's a difference in stage 3 compared to ZDP.
And there might be some translation on this one, but what are the guidelines for certifications, i.e. 9100, current certifications at companies during the work transfer? So would we assume that 9100 is also at the next facility or the transferred facility? But if that wasn't clear, we could answer that offline. Unless you want to take
my comment.
Go ahead.
Yes, my comment there so will be the expectation, I guess, at least for most AS&D organizations, is that the receiving side, the receiving organization, will be certified 9100, IAQG standard 9100. Therefore, it should have a process, a documented procedure to control the work transfer coming in. So I don't believe that there is a specific requirement, work transfer requirement, to obtain a certification. It's on the opposite way. Because it will be a 9100 certified organization, it will require them to have a work transfer process within their QMS.
Okay. This is a comment made by a gentleman that would like your input. So in this person's experience, an LAIR from the source organization is essential, and of course an FAIR by the receiving organization. In particular, if there are different sources of raw materials, special process, external inspection / test suppliers, etc., being used by the receiving organization, deployment of LPAs, layered process audits, by the receiving organization as soon as serial production commences will prevent mission drift. Do you have comments?
So just to clarify first, LAIR and LAI are the same. Last article inspection, last article inspection report, the same with FAI. And I would say that another way to do your manufacturing process reviews, like we talked about, it's similar to your layered process audit. You could do a manufacturing process review at your current source, at the current organization, to watch their process with external people as well. And then you can do an NPR at the current source after serial production or at the beginning of serial production to look for the exact same things. So I think layered process audits probably is another way to do that. And yes, it definitely is a helpful thing to do, especially when there's drifts in processes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the clarification up front. How can we ensure linkage of work transfer parts to our configuration management process?
So when you are changing the configuration of a part and it is staying at the same supplier, I would say work transfer is not required. But if the configuration of your part is changing at the same time you're moving to a new source, many companies do implement work transfer for that because you're still changing from source A to source B.
Okay.
And I think you have to define that in your work transfer process. I'm sorry, I'm just reading it again. And how do you ensure linkage? It's by including that in your work transfer and your configuration management process.
Okay. All right. This person has a statement. I understand these kinds of detailed work transfer requirements are needed for complex parts or complex assemblies or critical and sensitive parts. However, have you evaluated the possibility of having a more programmatic approach for simple parts/assemblies? It may be considered to understand the amount of work it represents to PMs, as well as frustration because of all the paperwork creates on the suppliers.
So in this case, it will be up to the organization to determine their work transfer process. Yes, we have shared the complete work transfer process recommended by the in the SCMH. And yes, there could be some tools, some elements that might not be required for a simple detailed part. However, it is similar to FAI, right? A complex part will require some level of effort to complete an FAI versus a simple FAI for a detailed part. It will be the same for work transfer. Their requirement is clear. Work transfer, it's required to be controlled, and organizations should have a process. So if your statement of work is not complex, well, your work transfer process should define which elements and how to control it.
And I think that continues with this question. If you want to add something to it, do we have to treat very simple job transfers cases as a big project as well? So I think you've just responded to that.
Yes.
Okay. And transfer of work requires always a PPAP. Does it always require a PPAP?
So the IAQG SCMH is recommendations, right? The SCMH 7.1 does not have requirements. SCMH does not give requirements, right? It's all recommendations. Now, should every work transfer require a PPAP? I think that goes back to Ricardo's last statement. It really depends on the risk, the mitigation, the overall risks to the project. And I think that could be defined and that should be defined in your company's work transfer process, if and when a PPAP is required.
Thank you. This one's an interesting case angle. If you are awarded with a part, then you want to outsource some processes from the first production. Does this consider as a work transfer since the contract initially indicates you are the only producer of the part?
So if we are talking about outsourcing some processes, let's say special processes or an in-process in the build sequence of your part, as you are not transferring the complete statement of work, that might fall under section 8.4, control of externally provided processes, products, and services. So in reality, if you were awarded with a statement of work, your organization is responsible for controlling that transfer of work. Now, all of the different processes, the raw materials, the special processes, any process outside your facility will be considered, as I mentioned, externally provided processes or sources. So you need to define how you're going to control that. Is if it's going to be controlled initially with a work transfer process and eventually transition to control of externally provided processes, products, and services. Any comment there, Vanessa?
No, I think that is correct.
And is it agreed that the elements of the APQP with work management should be chosen by multifunctional team?
Yes, and also should be partially at least defined by your process.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Has all the OEMs bought into the concept of deploying APQP from their side also? Easy to ask suppliers, are they doing it as well? I think we answered that by saying it's hard to say everybody is implementing it right now, as our panelists are from 2 individual companies. So it is definitely the movement towards this use. Did you want to add something?
I would say
No.
ideally the company should be deploying APQP as they require their suppliers to as well.
I agree.
Yep. Where do we find the Excel tools demonstrated here on the website? Well, I'm glad you asked. I think I'll take the time to show you that real quick. So I'm just going to do a quick live shot of the SCMH. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. So I just got into the SCMH. You see across the top some of the buttons I was telling you about. And you see here, these are all live links. So if you click on Plan and Manage, and then you scroll down, all of the different sections are across the top. Each one has got the full list here. There's 18 topics. Work transfer management, number 1. And here is the transfer. You can just download it right here, free to use. It's not protected as a PDF. It's use it as you want. I'd be very careful what buttons you click on it. But if you ever have a mess, you just go back to this one and download it again. And then the actual work transfer guidance is here as well. The webinar will be listed up above when we publish. And then we will also put some of the slides from today into an overview, and we're going to create a 7.1.1 that will share some of the information as well. Should FAI per 9102 be part of the work transfer? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, your FAI and your CAI should all be according to AS 9102. Sometimes your CAI is only Form 3 of the AS 9102 FAI.
Okay. And this one may or may not fit with this particular topic, probably better under FAI, but unlike the FAI, there's no international standard for LAI. Should the LAI be like an FAI, or is it a subset of an FAI? Or should it have a wider scope? How do you manage customer expectations of LAI?
So I did sort of just answer this one. That's
Yes.
interesting. But the LAI can be only the Form 3 of the FAI. It could be a full FAI. I think your company must define that, or should define that. It could be in your work transfer process or in an FAI process as well.
Okay. Typically, is there a specific resource, a project manager, that leads the transfer of work packages?
You know, even within my own organization, Collins, many different functions lead work transfer of work. I think it is important that no matter who is leading it, what function is leading it, that it is important that they are trained, they understand the requirements, and they can lead it to those requirements. What about at Boeing, Ricardo?
Yes, so the process, we have SMEs who manage work transfer and the process, and also leads who lead specific projects. So I will say it's a combination, and the idea is to have subject matter experts that are knowledgeable about the process, the complete process, and SMEs who are capable to manage specific projects.
Is a PPAP required if 9102 form is used?
No, I have not heard that before. No.
Looks like I might be trying to put a FAI webinar together soon. Some of the APQP tools are already being used. I'm in the middle of a major work transfer ATM, and we are finding that some of the tolerance requirements that the existing supplier had agreed to are not capable with the current tooling and processes. Also, hidden insider knowledge was very evident. What's the panelist's thought?
So what you described there makes a work transfer very difficult, right? And one of the things we say is that all of your hidden factories, all of your hidden processes at the current site should be communicated to the future site, right? But how do you do that, right? It's by observing that current site. And if that current site does not know that you're doing a work transfer, it certainly makes it harder. So you can do it as a regular quality audit, right? And observe that process using the work instructions and the drawing to compare it to.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I believe SW is going to be software, but the question is work transfer management applicable to SW engineering activities?
I'm not sure what SW engineering activities refers to. If this is design, then in most cases, work transfer does not apply to design.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are, yeah, I don't know. Ricardo, do you have any other information on this one?
No, not really. I would like to understand more.
Yeah, if the person that wrote that one would like to expand on their thought, maybe we'll get to that, but I still haven't reached the bottom list of our questions yet. We're going to go for a few more minutes. If a supplier needs to utilize a different special process sub-tier than they normally use, which is NADCAP accredited with the supplier, will the supplier be required to do a work transfer for the special process sub-tier? This is in regards to lead time capabilities. So they're changing from one sub-tier to another sub-tier. So that in itself is a work transfer. So,
well, this is for a special process, right? So I can only speak for my own company, right? At Collins, if you have to move one special process to a new special process, it follows our special process requirements, right? So there is a defined document for special processes, and the move of special processes follows that document and not work transfer. How is it done at Boeing, Ricardo?
It's similar. It's controlled per our special process command media, and in the standard, it will fall also under 8.4. 8.4 control of externally provided processes, products, and services.
I do want to clarify that this is only if you're moving a special process, does it follow the special process procedure. But if you are doing a work transfer of a product that includes special processes, those are done with the work transfer, but the special processes follow that special process procedure. But they should be tracked in your work transfer and ensure that it's complete.
Correct.
Okay. So one person asked if it was possible to access the recorded webinar. Yes, that's going to be possible. We just need a few days to go through it, trim the beginning and the end maybe, and we'll get that published out in the spot I told you about. And this is it looks like one of the last, maybe second to last questions. How to prepare work capacity, number of persons needed in different stages. Is that clear, or?
Is that question referring to, what is it, the stage 1, which is proposed?
I think it's coming from the tool that we demonstrated. You know, what would be the number of persons that you need to do that in all the different stages? The team makeup, maybe.
So that again should be defined by your work transfer procedure. Who should be team members, who should be approvers, right? And extra team members could be added based on the requirements of the process. But if this is talking about how many people the future supplier needs, you know, they have to estimate the hours that it will take them to build the product and equate that to what lines it can fit on, what equipment it can fit on, and how many people they need.
Thank you. And this last one looks, okay, so we did have a clarification on the SW. It says software design, coding, and maintenance transferred to a subcontractor or to another community in the same company. And thank you for that comment. They said it's a great webinar so far. So it seems to be a work transfer of sorts. Do you have any comment on that? Okay, maybe we'll take that one offline. And then the last question is, time and cost are always key influences on the ability to adhere to all of the recommendations in the work transfer process. Could a critical path tool approach be included in the future, covering the strongly recommended steps with the ability to add estimated hours, days per task? This would help build and highlight the overall timeline required as early as possible in the overall project evaluation. It sounds like an improvement to the guidance and something
yes.
for us to consider. So we record all of the questions, and we'll be collectively meeting together to go over some of these and seeing what we can pull from the questions to improve or clarify the guidance that we have available. So I think that fits in that category. With either of you could respond if you like, but if you're satisfied with that response, we could just summarize our closing comments from either of you.
The only thing I would say about that is please look at 7.1.3. It already tells you some of the strongly recommended, or optional steps, both with APQP or not with APQP. So to the person that asked the time and cost question, please take a look at that reference.
Thank you. All right, so I thank everybody for joining us today. We're coming up on a full hour here with the awareness we shared today, and hopefully answered as many as questions that you had. If you have more questions, again, I showed you on the screen now, you can see contact SCMH, send your question there, and maybe we'll also look a little more into that the software design question. So please use that button, send it to us, and we'll have the right people look at it and get you an answer. So thank you again, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Vanessa and Ricardo, for being our panelists today. We really appreciate it. Look forward to you all at the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Sue.
Thank
you,
you,
Vanessa.